Okay, today we're going to do some reverse applique. And what we need to have first is we need to have 2 pieces of freezer paper that are cut at 4.5 inches. I'm not going to put them together yet. I am first going to lay one down so that I can trace the heart that's on the pattern. Hopefully you can do a better job than I did. Now then, I'm going to take this freezer paper that I've traced on, and I am going to use a hot iron and press it to the other freezer paper, just to give me a little extra weight. Okay, I am ready to press my 2 pieces of freezer paper together with a hot, dry iron. No steam yet. Okay, I have my heart traced onto this freezer paper, and I'm going to cut it out. I try to maybe pinch a little on the edge, use my paper scissors, and make a little snip. Whoops. And then we're going to just cut around the heart. If you have smaller scissors, it might be better. And if you're not exactly perfectly on the lines, you should be ashamed of yourself and start again. But I'm beyond that. This is art, right? So I have my heart ready, and I don't think I need this guy right now, so I'm going to put him aside. Out a square of fabric. I'm going to cut this square bigger than I need. The directions say 5 to 6 inches. I don't want to cut it right at 4.5 because it's always easier to sew and to deal with something that's a little bit bigger. So this is, I don't know, it's not even exactly a square, I don't think. Maybe I should do that so that we have it to look at anyway. This is 5.5 inches on a side. And now we're going to go back to the ironing board, and we're going to press the freezer paper onto the fabric, onto the right side of the fabric. No, the back side of the fabric, which on this muslin, I can't tell which is which. We're going to press this to the back side. Okay, this is the back side of my background fabric. And I am going to place the freezer paper on top. Use a dry iron. I don't need steam. And press this down. There are 2 layers of freezer paper and the background. Okay, I have the heart under my sewing machine. I'm going to sew with a regular stitch length. I think it's about a 2.0. I'm going to sew just around the edge, right at the edge of that freezer paper with a straight stitch. I'm using matching thread, so it's sort of a off-white cream colored thread. Now I have my stitching done, and I am going to cut out the inside of the heart. Now I don't really care if I just don't want to cut in from the edge. I'm going to cut around the inch, about 1/4 of an inch in from the stitching line. Where the point is, but I'm going to go and make little snips every 1/4 inch or so, especially on these curves. You can even go a little closer. When I get to the straight parts, I don't have to make them so close. I think I do want to make one right down into the point at the bottom. All right, now we're ready to do some more pressing. Okay, now for the pressing. This is pretty important. I like to use magic sizing. You can always use starch. You might notice I have an applique pressing sheet because I have a new ironing board covered and I want to keep it nice today. But I take my sizing and I spray it into a, I have a little jar thing. Let me move this out of the way so we can see. Little jar thing, and I shake it up. I can turn the jar sideways a little bit. You can even use, I've used the cap too. You just need something where you can put the sizing in there. And you also need, it's handy to have a little paintbrush. It can be any kind of a paintbrush, but some sort of a kid's paintbrush. Put your magic sizing on, and you're going to apply it only to the inside of the heart, the places where you have clipped. I put it on kind of liberally. The good thing about this is what you don't use, if you put it in a jar like this, you can keep it for another day. Now then, we're going to press this back, and I use my fingers for a lot of it. And then we're going to use a hot iron, a hot dry iron, to press it back onto the freezer paper. Sort of like this. Now this sometimes can make your iron a little dirty on the bottom, but that's okay. We do that. At least I do that. Sometimes you have to hold the iron on there to get it to sit. It should press a little bit easier since you have the stitches there. That sort of gives you a line. And notice right here, this is kind of a tricky area. I don't think I want that to, so I might take my scissors and just, I don't want to snip too much, but a little tiny bit there will not hurt a thing. Okay, now we're going to snip it just so that he doesn't show through. What we're turning back will be on the back, of course. What we, when we flip this heart over, we don't want to see any raw edges. I'm going to press until all of the sizing is dry, basically. Okay, now, next section we're going to take off the freezer paper. So we're going to peel it gently off. And if you've stitched through, that's okay, it'll come off. Put that aside. Press one more time with your dry iron. Press it on the front. Now we're going to put it on the top of our, what the heart color is going to be. For me, I found this piece of pink square. Now it's helpful if your pink square is 5.5 to 6 inches too. When we finish, it's only going to be 4.5, but for right now, it's just easier to work with the big things. So I'm going to place my background fabric on top, and you can do one of two things. You can put a pin or two in here, 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 here. I think that might be what I did last time. If you don't want to do that, the other thing I like is Roxanne's Glue Basted. And I like it because it comes in a little bottle with this little applicator tip that's very small, so I can just go right through and put a couple of dots on here, maybe some there, maybe some right there, maybe some down here. And then I think we are about ready to move on. Okay, I'm at the sewing machine now. I have my sewing machine set to that famous stitch that I love so well, the blanket stitch. And I have it set so that it's, I think it's 2.4 wide and it's 2.4 long. I have set the needle so that it's on the far right side. And I turned the tension down so that I don't see any bobbin thread. And now I'm going to just stick the needle in, and up, and then I'm going to pull up that bobbin thread. Usually if you're sewing with the buttonhole stitch or the blanket stitch, you want to start in a straight area if you can. And that's where I'm at. I'm going to start, and it's going to go right in there and step over into the background. In, over. This thread is supposedly 50 weight, but it didn't seem thick enough that I needed to change my needle from a regular. Okay, we're back to the starting place. Here are my threads. First of all, lift those pins out of the way. I'm going to take my easy threader needle, and I'm going to pull my threads into the eye of the needle. Well, I'm going to pull all of them at the same time. That's a little bit easier. And then I'm going to feed them back through to the back. Make sure there's none stuck there. Okay, and then you can just tie them. Now, we're all done except for squaring this heart up into a 4.5 inch square. So let's go, well, I guess we can do it right here. My ruler on top, and I always think 4.5 inches, half of that is 2 1/4, right? So I'm going to, oh, and you know what I did before too. We might want to think about this. Okay, rather than cutting, I usually just cut. But for this, I thought, oh, I've done all this work. I don't really want it to be off too much. So here's my 2 1/4 line. I'm having it go right through the heart. But now, I don't know how high I want the heart. Here's the 2 1/4 line. I want that to be about in the middle of the heart. Looks like it's pretty close. If I have 4.5, it looks like it's going to be about 3/4 of an inch, and it's about 7/8 on top. So I think we're pretty close. Now, what I did was I just went, and then turned it around. But I think for us, if you're not sure, take a blue marker pen or some sort of a marker, like one of those iron erase markers, and mark there. Then go to the other side, lay it out, and now this time we want 4.5. We want the 4.5 right there. We want the 4.5 right there. And we're going to look, where does 2 1/4 come? Well, it's pretty close. Well, it is right on the line there, I think. And it looks like we have 3/4 at the bottom. We might have a little more at the top. So if you want to have it exactly, you might trim down just a tiny and have 7/8 at the bottom. That looks like 7/8 at the top. So I could just draw that. I think I'm just going to go ahead and live dangerously. We're going to trim. And we're going to turn it around. Now we're going to trim it. We're trimming this at 4.5 inches. The heart will actually be sewn in, and then it will actually be a 4-inch finished heart. Do not wiggle your ruler if you can help it. Okay, now then what we can also do is pull out or tear off the stabilizer. It won't hurt anything if you leave it. Actually, you might also, if your background is dark and you're worried about it showing through, like on this muslin, it might show through a little bit. So you could take your scissors and very carefully pull this up and just trim right around here so that that red doesn't show through on the outside. And then you're done. All done.